You've probably seen videos that say you could live in Thailand on $1,000 a month, but what if I was to tell you that you could live on half of that, even less? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pete on Retreat. In 2022, I sold nearly everything I owned so I could retire at 49 and move to Thailand. I watched hours and hours of YouTube videos, learning everything I could about making this big move, but after I moved here, I still found many things surprising. This is part 2 of 10 things that surprised me after moving to Thailand. Now let's get into it. If you've been keeping up with the news in Thailand, especially here in Pattaya lately, then you know there's a lot of Indians that come to Thailand. Estimates say that 2 million Indians visited Thailand in 2024, and that around 150 to 200,000 of them currently live here in Pattaya. I've known that India has a history of a strong tourist presence here in Thailand and definitely here in Pattaya. So what surprised me was that Indian food isn't all that cheap here. There's a whole area in Pattaya that is just kind of like a little India. The South Pattaya area is filled with Indian restaurants. I would not be surprised to learn that there's 100 Indian restaurants in Pattaya. I really don't know though. With all of that competition, I really thought that Indian food would be cheaper here, but it's not. You will commonly find that a main Indian dish here is going to run you about $4 or $5, and then add some naan or some rice on top of that. You can get thali dishes here, you know, kind of a mix of different foods all on one plate for around that same price. But considering how cheap Thai food is here, that you could get a full meal for $1 or $2, I thought Indian food would be cheaper. Now, I have to be honest here, I haven't eaten at that many different Indian places in town. I mean, like I said, there's probably 50 or 100 Indian restaurants here, and knowing which ones to go to is a bit of a challenge. The ones that are often recommended are the very popular ones outside of the Indian area of southern Pattaya. If you got a recommendation for one of the restaurants in that Indian district, please tell me down below. I have found some cheaper Indian food here. In fact, one of my favorite places to eat in town is the little Indian stall at Tepersit Night Market. Tepersit Night Market is this awesome big market on Tepersit Road where it gets its name from. It's close to Surin. It's now open 7 nights a week. It's got a ton of different food. All of it's very affordable, and there's a bunch of clothing and shoes and other things for sale as well. My good friend Shai took me to the Indian stall the first time I went, and ever since it's been a regular place for me to go. The food's really tasty. They've got these giant samosas that I just absolutely love. The naan is fresh cooked to order. You get fresh naan out of the oven every single time. If you know of any other cheap Indian food that's good in town, please tell me in the comments below. When I moved to Thailand, I thought mosquitoes were going to be a huge deal. I was expecting to get eaten alive every time I went out, and the truth is that hasn't really happened. Now, I am pretty good about putting on a few sprays around my ankles every time I go out, especially in the morning and around sunset. That is when they tend to be out the most. Honestly though, when I forget, I tend not to get any bites unless it's just been a couple days or within a couple of days of it raining. There's definitely a lot more of them after a fresh rain. I've experienced that, and in fact, I got bit just filming this video now. And I put spray on this morning, so maybe what I'm about to say isn't quite so. I honestly don't think Pattaya's mosquitoes are all that bad. I asked my girlfriend Goy about this. If you don't know, I've been with Goy for 1.5 years now, and she told me that the mosquitoes really aren't bad in Pattaya, at least compared to like Khon Kaen where she's from. She said that's because they spray here all the time and all over the place. I can attest to that. There's been a few times when I've been sitting in my condo and this horrible smell whiffs into our room. I go and look outside and I see somebody with a blower just fogging and fumigating all of the plants around the pool in our condo and all of the plants on the whole property of our condo. I kind of feel like mosquitoes have now acquired a taste for my blood. That first year I lived here, I really almost never got bit and wasn't using a lot of mosquito spray. But since then, I get bit a bit regularly more now. Bit a bit regularly? Come on, Pete, you could do better than that. To be fair, that first year I lived here was an incredible dry, wet season. It didn't rain for months and months and months, even in the rainy season, so that probably had a lot to do with it. Something else that really surprised me about living in Thailand is just how diverse the different provinces or different regions of the country are. Now, this is another thing we could just chalk up to Pete being a stupid American. Thailand's a really large country, so it makes sense that there's going to be a lot of diversity in the different regions. I didn't realize that there's at least 4 major languages spoken here in Thailand, and that people from Isan often can't really understand a lot of the things that people from Chiang Mai say. Central Thailand's got its own language, and Southern Thailand's got yet another one. There are plenty of crossovers in between the languages, but Isan, you know, the northeast region of the country, that language is actually closer to Lao than it is from Thai. At least from my understanding. Remember, I'm a stupid American. The regional differences go far beyond language though. There's also a lot of differences in cuisine. Southern Thailand's known for a different type of spice palette that's much more related to Indian food. Isan's food is much more like Lao food. They eat a lot of raw meats there, kind of done ceviche style, you know, partially cooked with citrus, but no, not really. Northern Thailand is home to one of my favorite dishes, khao soi chicken. The difference I really wanted to mention today, and just briefly, is that Surin, an area near Isan, or maybe in Isan, I'm really horrible with even American geography. Stupid American again. Surin is known for magic. As a Dungeons and Dragons player, I find that really cool, but it's known for having, I don't know, spiritual leaders that are able to cast spells or perform rituals that involve magic. I believe the region's also known for its afterlife, its amount of ghosts and spirits that stay there, or their belief, or they're dealing with them. I don't really know. I hear there's magical tattoos you could get in Thailand. Sometimes you'll see them on some of the working girls here, and they can supposedly enchant men to falling in love with them and giving them all their money. That would explain a lot, wouldn't it? I'm a big history buff, and one of the cool things that I've been discovering since I moved here is learning all about the history of Thailand. I really knew almost nothing before moving here. I had heard that it was never conquered. Basically, Thailand has never been colonized or fully colonized. Its location and its leaders at the time had done a great job of dealing with Western forces as they came in and colonized the surrounding countries. Basically, they were able to negotiate a way to keep their sovereignty throughout its entire history. Growing up, one of my grandma's favorite movies was The King and I. I watched that movie a ton of times as a kid. I don't think I'd seen it since I was like 7 or 8 years old, so I really forgot most of it, and I completely forgot that it took place in Thailand. I went down a little rabbit hole recently, discovering that that film has been banned in Thailand forever, and any telling of the story has been. Finding some footage of the film on YouTube made it blatantly obvious why. King Rama IV, I believe it's King Rama IV, is a very renowned figure in Thai history and in Thai culture. He's responsible for unifying the alphabet, I believe for unifying a lot of the different provinces into one country under Siam. He was big on bringing Western industrialization and Western medicines into Siam. In The King and I, the king is played by Yul Brynner, and he plays the king as kind of an egotistical, sexist buffoon. No matter how close to accurate that might be, and I don't think it's very accurate, there is no way that Thailand wants one of their most beloved historical figures to be portrayed that way. So yeah, the King and I is banned in Thailand. The other really interesting bit of Thai history I learned is that Thailand once declared war on the US. Yep, during World War II, Thailand kind of allied with Japan, and they were kind of forced to. Maybe they were playing political advantages. It's all up to interpretive history, but they did declare war on the US. At that time, however, the Thai ambassador to the US was a pretty smart guy. You see, he never delivered the declaration of war to anybody in the US, so the US never knew that war was declared on them. This had a huge impact after the war because when the West won, Japan and Germany were defeated. Japan and Germany, they had to pay reparations and make all kinds of concessions and stuff. Thailand, however, got to avoid nearly all of that because the US never knew they were at war. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so here's the big one. How can you live off of $500 a month in Thailand? It's really simple. All you got to do is live like a Thai. Now, that may not be very simple for most of us Westerners moving out here, but it is simple for some of us. Even here in Pattaya, you can live off of $500 a month. There are many Thais in this city that have a monthly salary of 13,000 baht. I believe 13,000 baht is around the starting salary for working at 7-Eleven. It's also probably a pretty common salary for people working in restaurants, at macro, different shops. To be fair, 13,000 baht is actually higher than the minimum wage here in Pattaya. So in theory, you could live here cheaper than that. So what does living like a Thai look like in a city like Pattaya? Well, first off is your accommodation. I think a lot of the lower wage Thais living here in Pattaya have room provided by wherever they're working. Now, as a Westerner, you can't do that, but there are rooms as cheap as 2,000, 3,000 baht here in Thailand. Many of the lower income earning Thais that live here in the city have 2,000 baht, 3,000 baht rooms. Now, we're just talking about a studio. It may not have air conditioning. It'll probably have a little fridge. It may not have any kitchen. I'm not sure. Some of them might even have shared bathroom facilities, but I know for 3,000 or 4,000 baht, you can find a place with air conditioning that has a bathroom. Obviously, it's not going to be luxurious by Western standards at all. One thing that's interesting to note is that 13,000 baht is more than double the poverty rate here. A quick look at the poverty rate shows that it's dropped like 25% in the last 30 years or so. There's one of those mosquitoes I said doesn't exist here. The poverty threshold in Thailand is actually only around 5,000 baht a month, and the current rate supposedly is about 6% or less. Many of the Thais that are living below that poverty rate are currently living on family land or government subsidized land. In the Bertie Foundation, we've gone door to door with other foundations and delivered food to people living under the poverty level. There are several areas just outside of Pattaya, or maybe even within Pattaya, that are government land housing. Many of the people living under this poverty level do kind of work for themselves. They find ways to make money. When we're delivering with Bertie, some of our members are surprised how many of the folks that we're giving food to have a car. Okay, so you have a room and you're only paying 3,000, 4,000, maybe even 5,000 baht a month. Where's the rest of your money going to? Well, it's probably going to street food. You're going to mostly live off of street food, or maybe you'll cook yourself and you'll learn how to cook very cheaply. Often people find that cheap street food is actually cheaper than cooking for themselves would be. If you know where to go, you could get dishes here in Pattaya for like 40 baht. There are some costs that as a Westerner you're going to have that the Thais don't have. One's going to be visa costs, but if you're doing your visa yourself, that's just going to be pennies. The other one is healthcare. Now, Thailand has national healthcare, but as a Farang, you do not qualify for that. Depending on your age and the level of healthcare and insurance that you're willing to settle for, that's going to make up a good chunk of your budget, or it might. The older you are, the more it should, and maybe this whole 13,000, 15,000 in baht thing is not within your budget. I haven't really crunched all the numbers on this. So yeah, it's very easy. You want to live in Thailand for $500 a month? Just live like a Thai.